But I am extremely grateful for you guys. No, well, maybe since the last time you saw me, I probably did get a haircut. Hi, Sarah. So glad you're here. Sarah Anthem with us. Can you guys hear me okay? Is everything coming through loud and clear? Hopefully it is. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Good. Okay, good. So yeah, no, I did get a haircut, I think. Thank you, Sarah. I think since the last time you saw me, but I'm not sure. So we've got a couple people on here. We're going to wait for a few more people to show up to the live. Maybe wait about 60 more seconds. Hi, Lloyd. So glad you're here today. Glad to have you with me. My mug is untrue today. It says not today. I peopled yesterday, and normally it applies as a school teacher. I'm always peopling. But today, yesterday, we had a snow day, and so it's not telling the truth today. Thank you guys for joining me for the question and answer today. Let me go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining me for the question and answer live about FreeFalling Book 1 of the Reconditioned Series. This is releasing on Tuesday, January 14th from Expanse Books, a division of Scrivenings Press. Please remember to like and follow me here on Instagram if you don't already. You can also find me at jlburrows.com where I keep my newsletter, and you can sign up and receive a free prequel anthology to my Balance Keeper series. I'm still working on the prequel freebie for FreeFalling, the Reconditioned series. But I am so excited about the launch of this first book in this trilogy, and it couldn't be coming out at a better time. I'm JL Burrows, for those of you who don't know me, which I think everybody on here does, but we'll just go ahead and introduce myself just in case. And I'm the author of FreeFalling, a book born straight out of my real life as a public school teacher for 18 years, a mom who considers how future society might turn out for her kids, and a Christian living when times seem at best volatile and at worst apocalyptic. Combine that with my wild imagination, and you have FreeFalling Book 1 in the Reconditioned series, where under the dome, peace reigns forcefully. This story follows Serenity, a young woman living 180 years in the future where history is no longer taught because it's inflammatory and was to blame for giving citizens violent ideas. They banned religion because it created division in community and judgment between people groups, and it imagines a government in control of most aspects of life, placing its citizens under constant surveillance. In such a time, hi Andy, hi Amy, hi Lindsay, so glad you guys could be here. And in such a time, one might wonder how God might reveal himself to Serenity. And in this exciting journey of discovery, God uses the most unlikely people, and yes, even the dog Sasha in the story, to accomplish the most amazing things. So I'm just going to share with everyone a little bit about the story, and then we will dive right into any questions. So as I'm kind of introducing myself and my story, if you guys want to go ahead and pop questions into the comments, and then I'll be able to respond to those, I think, if I can see them. So I'm so glad that everybody's here. In case anybody's wondering, I do not do lives very often. They make me nervous. Actually, anything where my face is on the screen makes me nervous. So, but I'm doing this because I really believe in this, and Sasha has my heart too. I don't know if you knew this, but Sasha, the dog in the story, is based off of a real life German Shepherd. My brother, Rob, he lives in the same area as me, and Sasha was his dog. And funny story, she was this beautiful full breed German Shepherd that was abandoned at the end of the road. We used to live at the end of a road that was like dumped into a lake, and people would oftentimes drop their dogs off there. And so I've rescued a lot of dogs in my life, and that was one of the ones that I've rescued because I have a heart for animals. And so I rescued her, and I brought her into my house, but at the time I already had a ginormous dog, and I was living in a small condo, and I couldn't sustain another giant dog. So I voluntold my brother to take care of this dog, and she became the heart of his household. I mean, she just was such a joy for him, and brought such joy to all of our family. And what's interesting is, she passed, and I had decided that I wanted to memorialize her in this story, and I can't wait to see what my brother thinks of how I re-envisioned her in this story. But her name actually was Sasha. She was actually a German Shepherd, and I loved this dog, and we miss her dearly. Anyways, getting back to Serenity and a little bit, she didn't, in their timeline, they don't know about dogs. Like pets were not normal. They were something that maybe, no, they just didn't have pets in this timeline, especially not Under the Dome. Under the Dome is a special, specific society. And right now, the only perspective you have is that society, because that's the only society that Serenity knows. But as you continue through the trilogy, you'll find there's other societies with other unique attributes that that Serenity gets to eventually come in contact with. Funny story, Sarah's asked, is Sasha modified in the story? And I contemplated doing that. I contemplated changing her in some way or another, but I ended up not going with that because, you know, she was meant to be an honor. But there's a lot of creatures that are modified in the story, and there's a lot of changes that the government implements, but really cats and dogs in that time period were abandoned as being superfluous, as being this thing that, you know, was taking away from society and not the best. You know, like German Shepherds even today are kind of viewed as being aggressive dogs, and, you know, you can take them into certain communities but not all. And so it's just kind of fast forwarding that ideology that, you know, dogs are dangerous, and to protect people we need to, you know, get rid of certain breeds. And I just fast forwarded to like all the breeds because dogs in general can bite. So anyways, her furry beast companion, she's known as the furry beast companion. Hi Meredith, thank you so much for joining us. She's known as the furry beast companion because when she's introduced in the story, Serenity doesn't know what she is. She's never seen a dog before. And so she's really terrified of Sasha at first, as most people are terrified of German Shepherds. And so we kind of walk through her getting introduced to this dog and ends up rescuing, well, not rescuing, but like adopting the dog. And really, the dog adopted her. So it's Sarah, her illegal AI tech, a furry beast companion, and this ragtag group of people that are all pitted against a government with cutting edge technology and genetically modified bioweapons. In this situation, the odds are really stacked against them, but the truth, God's truth, biblical truth, needs to rise out of the deception. So in this case, Sarah must find a hero within herself and face down a future on the brink of oblivion. Sarah says, I kept suspecting she had some kind of download of Sarah's mom's memories or something because she's so protective. I can totally see that. I can. But I will tell you that German Shepherds in general are very protective dogs, and they love deeply. And I mean, once you're in their heart, you're in their heart forever. I mean, she was just such a great dog. And I'll remember when I got my puppies, and my puppies are much smaller than a German Shepherd. I have Shih Tzus, which are Shih Tzus mixed with miniature poodles. And when Sasha first met Jack, she, you know, her paws like this big. She puts her paw on top of Jack and he squeaks like a squeaky toy, and she literally freaked out, went and hid herself, was like so careful. They're just very smart, very, very intelligent beings that love so deeply. They're beautiful animals. So in this timeline, when Serenity should feel safe, she really doesn't. In fact, she knows two things for certain. Finishing her government-assigned community service as a teacher is mandatory in order for her to start her adult life. So if you take the ideology of like, we have a shortage of teachers now, and you kind of fast forward that 180 years into the future, and you wonder, who are going to be our teachers? If we continue on the trajectory we're on right now, who's going to teach our children? So it's me just kind of playing around with those ideas. And so in this timeline, it's a part of community service that young adults have to participate in, where they pay back to the younger children and to the community so that they have a right to enter into the final stages of their entrance into society, to becoming a final member in a position where they work and make money in their society. So it's mandatory in order for her to start her life. And stopping those in power from reconditioning two of her favorite students will ruin her chances at a future and a life. And everything at that time she thought she once knew to be true suddenly becomes in question when these two girls have this fight in front of the whole entire school. And fighting is outlawed. You're not allowed to get into a fist fight with your friend over a boy, which is what happens. And so the Federal Bureau of Acceptance, so we have the FBI. This is the FBA. I was, again, playing with ideas and fast forwarding them. because of the FBI then storms in and takes these two girls, and the society, what they do is, if people don't fall in line and don't obey and don't listen to the government, they recondition them. It's a chemical brainwashing. With no one to help, Serenity is driven into a wild rescue and escape plan. The girls can't be made into shadow children, which is what the people of the dome call people who have been reconditioned. And so reconditioned people don't have all of their intelligence and all of their knowledge. They don't. They end up chemically brainwashed, and they're kind of limited to menial tasks after that. So like they would be the street cleaners or the garbage collectors or any one of those kinds of things. With no one to help, Serenity is driven into this wild rescue that, normally she would never do. This is, your unlikely hero. She doesn't want to do this. She just wants to live her life, but she also loves these girls dearly, and they can't be limited to that kind of a future. If any of them get caught, they'll be reconditioned. If they don't move fast enough, the girls will be lost. If she doesn't become a hero, any hope of a real future will be forfeit. In her transformation from a teacher with a broken family to a radical defector leading a team of rebels, Sarah discovers America's deadliest threat, its own government. So I have a couple questions prepared. Let me check the chat and see if there's any questions in there. And honestly, I was hoping I could cheat, but I don't see. Good. Everything looks like it's working. And it looks like I answered the questions as they came in. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about myself now. Where I'm from Vermont. I actually just visited it over Christmas, and it was a beautiful time to visit. Normally at this time of year, there isn't snow on the ground, but normally at this time of year, there isn't snow on the ground in Tennessee, and we have snow right now. So it's definitely not one of those normal years. So I got to see a lot of snow while I was in Vermont. I grew up there as a pastor's kid. I was homeschooled before it became popular, even normal. I'd say there are two major places I've lived in my life that have had a major impact on my faith. The first is Maine, which is kind of strange, but when I was in college, my sophomore year, between my first and second years, it might have been beginning of my sophomore, and I can't remember, everything's kind of foggy there, but I was riding a bicycle on my way to work because I was, a little bit more athletic than I am now, and I got hit by a car while I was on that bicycle. And at the time, it was a kid trying to get to her graduation, just wrong place, wrong time. She was not driving out of control or wild or anything. She was making a right turn. I was right there on the right side. She didn't see me, and she just turned right into me, dragged me for about 50, 60 feet. And I jumped up because I was embarrassed. I was not aware of shock at that time. I was young. Kids are crazy when they're in their 20s. So I muscled through, and actually I probably was 19 at that point, but I muscled through, and I felt bad for the kid. So I just let her go on and ended up in the hospital a couple hours later with some major problems, and realized at that point that I would have to heal. And so I thought it would be a quick healing journey, but it triggered some sort of like latent problem in my muscles. And I got this weird diagnosis, and then my long fought for career as a concert pianist went up in ashes. And I really fell into a pretty deep depression. At that time, my friends in college, I was a part of a Allegheny Christian Outreach, Allegheny College. And at the time, they were like, you've got to get out of yourself. You can't wallow here. You're going to have to go help somebody else. That'll help you get out of this. And so I thought, okay, that was really good advice. And I ended up, at that time, going to the Bahamas on a short-term mission trip. And then that ended, so I did a series of those, loved being a missionary, loved working with the kids. At the time, I had just planned on being a piano player. I had no inkling to work with children at all. Now, mind you, what's very interesting is that my dad's a teacher, my mom's a teacher, all of my aunts and uncles are teachers, on both sides of the family. So at some point I should have been like, okay, maybe I should think about the family business. But it just wasn't, I just didn't think about that. And so on this mission trip, I learned about how much I loved kids. I found a new purpose for music and myself. And after the last short-term mission trip at the very end of my college career, I was invited to become a teacher there, full-time as a music teacher. And I thought, they gave me 3 days notice. I had to pack up everything and fly out and move. And I did it. I don't even know if I sold everything or gave it away. I ended up with whatever I had that I could carry. And I moved countries for a full-time job as a teacher, as a music teacher. And I taught K through, might be 8th grade. I can't remember. It's been a while. When I arrived, I had no phone. I had no car. I had no place rented. I actually slept in an abandoned parish on the floor. I was really a little bit of a wild child. I had no license to teach. I was just invited to teach because they had such a need for teachers. During this time, God taught me so much. He made me aware of my true purpose and established that He and only He is the writer of my life. In the Bahamas, I met my husband. I found my now career as a teacher. I discovered my mission to share God's love, and I discovered the impact of faith over fear. So I haven't seen any more questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. Don't worry about interrupting. I'm perfectly fine with, I'm a teacher. We deal in interruptions, okay? Like all day long. So it doesn't bother me one bit. If you have a quick question, pop it in the chat and I will respond to it as quickly as I can. But I had a list of questions that people had sent in beforehand that I wanted to go ahead and share if we didn't have too many questions. So what are some fun facts about you as a person? And there's a list of quick questions here. Tea or coffee? All those in favor of coffee, raise your hand in the chat. Let me know if you love coffee, because I'm a coffee girl. Now, I will tell you, I'm also a tea girl, because right now I'm drinking tea. But if it was earlier in the day, because, middle age and all, I can't drink coffee too late. So, but I do have decaf just in case. Every day, but always with almond or oat milk, especially at Starbucks, or more locally, Brass One Coffee. I love those. Amber asked, have you ever had any students you'd risk yourself for like Sarah did? Definitely, yes. And there was an instance, 4 years back, we had a shooter in the school, and it was my student who had brought a gun into the school. And that was the first time in my life where I was like, okay, if this kid comes through that door, I'm standing between them and these kids. And that was a really, you kind of see me getting emotional about it now, because that was such a terrifying moment. And it was so hard to imagine myself in between a gun and someone else. And if you read my stuff, you'll probably think, oh, well, she's pretty violent. Not true at all. I'm not violent. It was definitely something I've thought a lot about, especially with local shootings we've had at our schools and people bringing guns in and all the different, earlier in my career, I had a girl bring in a hunting knife. And so it's something I think about a lot. And there's definitely been so many kids that I have, that I would gladly lay my life down for, so it's a tough question. Thank you for asking. That's a beautiful question. I teach, so Sarah asks, what do I teach now? I'm an advanced honors English teacher. It's a little perfect, because I go teach English, then I come home and I write stories, and it's been really fun, because it gives me an opportunity to both learn with my students, so I know I can share with them how hard it is to learn, because I understand that, and how hard it is to write something, to get the ideas through your mind onto the page. But it's also a blessing, because the kids love to have a teacher who's actively using what it is, and they're curious about what I write, and they're curious about how to become writers. And so I'm also the Creative Writing Club sponsor at the high school, and I mentor a couple of writers that are doing great. I have a student who just put out a book this year, Linnea Miluznich. She put out Heir of Promise, which is a middle grade Christian fantasy, and I'm so super, super proud of her. And I'm so excited to see where God takes her next in her journey. But I'm very blessed to be a teacher. All right, headed back to a few of my favorite things. Favorite season? Spring and fall, obviously. Now, what's funny is you would think it would be like summer, because I'm a teacher and that's when I get off. But it's blazing hot in Tennessee. It's not easy to enjoy. It's really like too hot. And winter is too cold. I really like spring and fall, and I'll tell you why. Even though I do have allergies, that season of rebirth, when you get to see everything just come to life, and that season of change where we get to see old things pass away, is such a story of God's forgiveness in our lives, and how He renews us, and how He refreshes us, and how He takes out the things that shouldn't be there anymore. The next question was favorite Bible verse. And I really struggled with this question. And then it dawned on me, it's not what is my favorite Bible verse, but what is the Bible verse that I cling to when I'm struggling. And that's, I can do all things through Christ who is my strength. And it's oddly enough that that's true for when I work out. Like, I would chant that as I'm like running or working out, because I'm like, I can't do this. And I'm like, okay, I can do all things through Christ. And I'm like running and trying to make sure that I get in shape or stay in shape. Oh, hi, Caleb. I'm glad you're here. Coffee first, then tea. Yes, ma'am, that's me. And then let's see. I feel like I saw another coffee comment. Keep the coffee comments coming. I mean, we've got to have that in common, and that's an important thing to have. What do you do in your free time? I think it's so funny to think about the concept of free time at my age. I just don't even know what that means. I think I guess some would consider reading something you do in your free time. I read, but I'm also a reviewer. So like there's a little bit of a grind to it of like, I need to get this book done in time for something. I do take baths. That's kind of one of my things where I go and I just take a nice, Calgon take me away kind of thing. That's an aged remark. So hopefully you catch that. I work out, I weightlift while listening to the Bible or some of my favorite speakers. Like I love Barbara O'Neill. So those are some of the things I do in my free time. It's pretty scheduled. I mean, it's like this is what I'm doing from this time to this time. So I don't know if we consider that free. And another question was, am I a cat or a dog person? I'm pretty sure anyone who's read the arc for FreeFalling knows dog. I have two of the cutest writing buddies ever, and they'd be in here, except I, for some crazy reason, scheduled this during dinner time. And so they're out begging for food at the dinner table right now. Liliana asked, what gave you the idea for this book series? So I'm going to hop down. I actually wrote this answer because I didn't want to mess it up. So let me find that real quick. There we go. So I will say it started in the classroom for me. Like it started with this frustration of like people saying things about the classroom when they weren't in the classroom. So like there's a news segment we have here in, at least that I see on our news, that's crisis in the classroom. And it gets me angry every time just because of the heading. I don't even care what they're going to say. It's this inflammatory approach to like, there's a problem. And do I think that it's flawless? No, not at all. But this ideology that people who aren't in it should be the ones deciding about it. It's a little bit of a struggle for me because it's uninformed information. So I work with, that concept of just being frustrated that people without boots on the ground are saying things and speculating solutions when they don't know much. And so then I take those proposed solutions that I've seen in like crisis in the classroom on social media, and I just fast forward them and like, what if we didn't need, I don't know, calculus? What if we took that away? What if we took anything hard away? What if we took away teachers? We have a shortage already. What happens then? And then I also put with that, so I work with students who struggle with very real world problems, but I can't share with them the greatest solution. And that's so hard for me to not be able to say, you are so loved. God has a plan for your life. There's purpose to this struggle that you're in right now. Kids at the age I work with are very focused on how they feel and they can't necessarily get beyond that. And so I want them to understand that they matter and are loved more than they'll ever know. So then that was just the beginning. And then it was just a matter of what if questions, right? What if we did away with those harder subjects? What if there was a terrible teacher shortage? In fact, there were no adult teachers. How would we solve that? So the whole like having the community service teachers is my solution. Like, okay, you want to become an adult and be a part of society as an adult, you have to dedicate these 4 years to educating the previous generation. And then what if the government took more and more control of our health, of our education, of our communities, of ourselves in general? You get the idea. My biggest what if question in FreeFalling is, what if we were forced to accept everyone's individual truth, no matter who they are, no matter what they decide that truth is, instead of knowing and experiencing the freedom and power of God's truth? And of course, the main character is a teacher, which is born straight out of my life experience for teaching for 18 years. So a lot of it's inspired by a combination of those things. Thank you for that question, Liliana. That was excellent. So I'm going to go into a few of my other favorite things. One of the questions I was asked is, what is my favorite day of the week? What a weird question, right? Do you guys have a favorite day of the week? I wonder if you can guess mine. I'll come back to that one. See if you can guess mine. Thank you, Liliana. Let's go to holiday. And then my response to my favorite holiday is, does my birthday count? If yes, then it's definitely my birthday. I've always been like a month-long birthday girl, and so we celebrate for a good bit of time when it's my birthday month. If that's not an acceptable answer to the holiday, because my birthday doesn't count as a holiday for most people, then Christmas, because Jesus is the greatest gift of all, and honestly, it's amazing. Leanne, you think all the days are the same? They are definitely not the same. They don't even have the same vibe at all. Genre other than what I normally write, I feel like this is totally a loaded question. But as a multi-genre author, I had to really dig because I read a lot of what I write. And so recently, another author at the publishing company I'm with, Scrivenings Press, Donna, I think her last name is Wickelman. She wrote the book Song of Deliverance. It just came out, I want to say in December. Anyways, I read it over Christmas break and I loved it. And there's something about exploring history through the lens of fiction that it makes me so curious, and I just enjoy it so much. Okay, I'm going to double back to day of the week. My favorite day of the week is Saturday, hence why the live is today, because I can sleep in and I can write earlier in the afternoon. It just has that I don't have to be anywhere feel. Not every Saturday, but at least some Saturdays have that, whereas most of my other days, including Sunday, I saw somebody up here put Sunday, Sarah put Sunday. But Sunday has this, like, I still have to get dressed feel, and Saturday has this whole, like, no makeup, don't have to do your hair, wear sweats kind of feel, and I love that. That's really, like, that's kind of my vibe. I want to share a little bit of advice for new authors. I was asked, what advice do I have for new authors? And so I want to share a couple pieces of advice. If you are newer in the author journey, I just want to encourage you and edify you and lift you up a little bit. It is hard when you begin. It feels lonely. And I just encourage you. I have a couple of pieces of advice, so stick with me. I got about 5. Together with a friend who's on here now, Amber, I started Chris, a local Christian authors group in Smyrna, Tennessee. And in that group, I've been blessed to walk alongside several new authors into publication. And it's been just a wonderful journey. But there's a couple takeaways that I really want to encourage you to focus on. Number 1, it's a lifestyle, not a destination vacation. If you think you are writing to finish the book, you'll find that there's just another book, another revision, another edit, another something that you have to do for your book. Writing the book is simply the first step in a journey of steps. When I was younger and dieting, I used to hear all over the place, I'm changing my lifestyle, not dieting. Writing a book is much the same way. It's a lifestyle. So create systems that support your writing consistently. 2, this is kind of my banner thing. I learned this when I was going through my husband's cancer. 1 step has more power than huge chunks. When my husband was going through brain cancer, that's a whole story in itself. I learned that I had to just make the next step through life. I couldn't think about big picture or end results. I couldn't even really think about the whole process of doing laundry at that time. But I could put on blinders and force myself to take the next step, no matter how much it scared me. In that, I found that journey went more quickly. Each step grew a tiny bit easier, and I could accomplish incredible things in very short periods of time. 3, work with yourself, not against yourself. So many people try to force themselves into another author's mold, or they hear advice and they try to do this thing that doesn't work for them. Don't try to be something you're not. It never works. It never fits. It's like wearing shoes that are too tight. It's just not a good idea. I am a night person. I am not a morning person. I try not to schedule anything in the morning. And I try to honor that about myself. If you know, like, obviously I'm a teacher. I have to get up in the morning. I have to go to work. If I could change that, I absolutely would. I think teaching teenagers later in the day would be amazing. I think they would think that too. But don't try to be something you weren't created to be. God made you on purpose the way you are. There's enough in this world to fight against. Don't let your war be against yourself. Number 4, learn. The minute you think you've arrived, you will grow stale. In my writers group, we try to study a book a year. This year's book is Susan May Warren's The Story Equation. Other books I've learned from and loved are Hawker's 17-Step Method, unfortunately named Take Off Your Pants, referring to pantsers learning to plan. Story Genius by Larry Brooks. John Truby's The Anatomy of Story. Break into Fiction by Mary Buckham and Diana Love. The Emotional Wounds Thesaurus, and that whole series by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi, I think is how you say her last name. And I have at least 50 more on my 2BR that I can't wait to dig into. And I just learn from others. It's not like you're going in to become like them, but sometimes they just confirm what you're doing. Sometimes you find a little tweak that makes you more efficient. Sometimes you just need the encouragement to know you're not doing this alone and other people are out there doing it. And finally, work to the end. I cannot emphasize that enough. So many newer authors get lost in the spiral of starting a book, getting to like chapter 6 or 7, discovering they've learned something new, or they have a new idea, or they did something wrong, and then they go back to the beginning and they work 1 through 7 again and again and again and again, and they don't get to the end. They give up far before that. So I encourage you to work to the end. If whatever you're trying to do, work from beginning to end. Make a note. I have to go back and revise such and such. Have a plan to go back, because you're going to eventually revise, but you'll never make it to the end if you don't intentionally push to the ending. It's essential to learn to persevere to that end, especially the end of each phase of writing. All right. Any other questions out there? If you're a newer author, if you're just another author out there and you have a question for me, feel free to ask about being an author, like any questions you have about that. I'm going to just continue to answer questions. One of the questions I was asked is what inspired me to start writing. And that's kind of a funny story. I've always been a writer since I can remember. I've written, and what changed for me, like when I had that moment where I felt God told me to write something, was like Christmas time one year, and I was like, that's crazy. I'm a serious person, and serious people don't write fiction, which is that's really wrong way of thinking, but that was what I thought at the time, because I didn't know. And about 6 months later, my principal called me into the office, which, by the way, even as a teacher, you don't want. And she sat me down and she's like, we're starting a creative writing class, and I'm going to have you teach it. And I'm sitting there going, what? And she's like, there's no curriculum for it, but we don't have anywhere else to put these kids. And I was like, okay, God, I get it. I'm going to write fiction. And so that's where I wrote the entire Balance Keeper series, was in that class with those kids. And I just encouraged them to write whatever they felt like writing. And so we all worked on our own books all year. It was really fun. Sarah said, how did you start creating a launch team? Honestly, the best way to learn how to do launch teams is to follow someone else who does launch teams. And that's how I learned. I followed a couple of other authors who had great launch teams, and I just, took note of their procedures. And then I looked at what worked for me. And I'm pretty organized because I'm a teacher. So I kind of had to bring my teacher brain into that and be like, okay. And then my sister, she's amazing. She's always telling me that I use too many words in every piece of communication. And so she taught me to keep the emails shorter, because mine would be super long. And anyways, it really started when I saw other people doing it well, and I wanted to do that same thing. And I had launch teams from the beginning, like with my very first book, but I would start them too late, or I would start them with too much at one time, or I would get confused about what their responsibilities should be. And so I had to learn to define those things for myself and come up with a plan. And now I know, you need to at least start 90 days before. You need, ideally, the more people you have in your launch team, the more successful the launch is going to be. So there were a couple of foundational core principles that started to lead me into it. Too much communication is bad. Too little communication is bad. There's another one. So finding that sweet spot of how often to communicate with the street team and meeting people where they're at. I recently started to do an Instagram group on Instagram so that I could communicate with the launch team on the day-to-day, and just so people could get to know me. And that's been very positive experiences. But I recommend, if you're struggling with doing a newsletter, I recommend joining other newsletters, especially of people that you feel like are similar to you, and then trying to, just pick a few things that work for you. Oftentimes when I sit down and I go, what am I going to say? Who's going to listen to what I have to say? I'll read someone else's newsletter. I'll be like, oh, okay, well, they talked about this and I have something similar here. Maybe I could talk about that part of my life. And it's enough to inspire me to make that next step in my journey. I do want to share a little bit of what ARC readers are saying about FreeFalling. So this is a quote. of one of the reviews, and I'm super excited to already have 3 reviews. This is very cool for me. I've never had reviews before a book launched before, and I'm just super excited about that. Let's see if I put at the end, maybe. Yeah, Charity Hennico. This is her review. It's not the full review. It's kind of long. And it's on Goodreads. So if you want to go see it, you can look at Goodreads and FreeFalling and you'll find it. It's Charity Hennico. She wrote, "If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I know people say they don't like dystopians because they're so hopeless. But to me, they scream hope. Hope that there will always be someone willing to fight the powers that be. Hope that someone bigger is in charge. Hope that one person can make a difference. This book embodies all of those things. I was on the edge of my seat. I was rooting for the underdogs. I was furious with the complacency, and I was filled with hope. I wanted to join in the fight, and all it took was one person to stand up. One person can truly make a difference." Again, for the full review, you can go to Goodreads and find Charity Hennico's full review of FreeFalling. Amber wrote, "So Sarah has a special futuristic AI that speaks just to her. How have you integrated modern AI into your writing?" So, do you mean do I use AI in the writing process? There's an app called Pro Writing Aid that I adore. I mean, they've really worked hard to meet writers where they're at. And it's like having a critique partner when your critique partner's busy. And what's even better is it's a critique partner before you get to critique partner. So you're not giving them such a messy draft. So Pro Writing Aid is one way that I've integrated AI into my writing. I use a conversation that I have with AI to help me plan my launches. Like I'll put up in there the the book blurb and just be like, okay, you are a social media content developer and you're putting out a book, and then I list off 3 or 4 other authors that are writing something similar to me. What should you post for 90 days leading up to the launch of the book? And so that's another way where it kind of gives me ideas. I really feel like the right way to use AI is as an idea generator or as a way to figure out my own thoughts. So I use both in those ways. That's a great question. Thank you. Another question I've been asked is who are your favorite authors and what have you learned from them? So as an avid reader, my favorite authors shift with time. So it's kind of a tough question. And I'm sure if I was to ask you the same question, you might struggle with it too. But 2 recently, so this is now, there's so many over the period of, my life, but 2 recently, and this is a qualifier, who have a ton of books. I like it when there's a lot of books because I like to read a lot. And that I've been reading for some time are Susan May Warren and Ronnie Kendig. I adore Warren's romantic suspense books, and I often binge read a series that I then review for Clean Fiction magazine, where I'm a reviewer. Kendig is like me. She's a multi-genre author. I don't know about Susan May Warren. I know she does the romantic suspense, and I've never really kind of dug into what else she does. But she definitely does romantic suspense so well. That's what I'd want to read from her. Ronnie Kendig wrote the Breed Apart series. It's about war dogs, and I fell in love with these retired war dogs and how they would get brought back in, and so a lot of that was me learning about how to write Sasha. And so I specifically looked up books with dogs in them, and hers came up, and I'm so happy I found her. It's full of angst and witty banter, and it's got great romance that's played out, but it's not like fluffy romance. It's really good, gritty, the stuff is going on in the background of war and battle and which is kind of what I enjoy. I just recently read her science fiction novel Brand of Light, and I'm about to read the second in the series because that first one was so good. So it's really interesting to go from one genre to another with an author. But this idea that we're told as authors, stick with your genre, separate your audiences. I don't know. I see a lot of people not doing that and doing well. And so I'm encouraged, because what I hope to do is just be me, have people follow me, and then enjoy what I write. As far as what I learned from them, that's really hard for me to put a finger on. It's not a specific skill or thing, but more of an edification of my journey with Christ, a sense of camaraderie and kinship, both with the mind of the author and the characters' journeys. I'm inspired to walk my faith, see God's work in the moments that seem darkest, know with increased certainty God's plan is good and something I can trust. And when my heart hurts, God is working to heal and save me. For me, that's why I read Christian fiction, and I encourage you to also read it. For a long time, I only read secular fiction, and God has slowly saved my reading and brought it into his love and truth. Now, I'm not saying there's anything bad about secular fiction, but there is something innately good about Christian fiction that has really done good things for my heart and my thinking about the world and myself. A lot of this world feels hopeless, and Christian fiction definitely takes in this brings hope into each scenario because God is there. So maybe the thing I've learned the most is that our God is amazingly detail oriented. He holds the whole world in his hands, and yet he cares about the ache of our hearts. Sarah asked, have you already started writing book 2 in the FreeFalling series? And the answer is yes. Actually, book 1, 2, and 3 started as one book. And I had written it, revised it, sent it off to a critique partner at the time. And they were like, man, you've got too much plot for one book. You're going to have to break this up. And so I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I can totally see that. There were three specifically different worlds in this book that I had created, this monster mammoth book. And so there was like a nice, simple place to separate the 3 out. And so when you finish book 1, she's basically stepping out of the world she's known her whole life. And so in book 2, we go out into the rest of the world and we find out what's happened with the rest of the world. And so, yeah, about 33,000 words of that is written. And I plan on finishing that. It has to be to the publisher by May. So I'm going to be working on that hard between now and then. One of the questions I've been asked is, when did you feel you had arrived as an author? I do believe we're always in God's making. So I don't really think about things like as arrived. This journey isn't a place of destination, but a series of moments designed for our learning. I would say I don't really think like that, but I would like to say this last year, this FreeFalling has been monumentally different. And I feel like I've kind of leveled up with this one. As an indie author with the launch of my first book, it was really just me trying to figure things out. And now I feel like I have a method to the madness. There's still a little madness in there, but it's just a little bit more organized, a little bit of, organized chaos. I knew when I released Indie that was what I was meant to do, but it was one of those things where I felt alone. And so I'm really excited to be joining with Scrivenings Press and Expanse Books for these books to come out. What's funny is I didn't have any intention of looking for a publisher at the time, but Amy had been telling me about her publisher, and it just sounded so nice. And then life kind of throws curveballs at you. And my dad recently was very sick and then just passed this December. And so I had needed the help. I needed a team of people, and to not be a one man. I always think of the one man band. Where they're playing all the instruments, and that's kind of what being an indie author is like. It's like being a one man band where you've got the harmonica here, the drum there, the accordion here, and you're just doing the best you can with all of it. And it's been a different experience going traditional. I'm really enjoying the support and the community of being traditionally published. It's been such a blessing. And I went to my publisher puts on an annual conference called ScrivCon, and it was a beautiful time to meet people and to be a part of that community. So I'm very, very glad that they are publishing this trilogy. So FreeFalling is coming out Tuesday, January 14th. And there's also 2 other books in that contract, so it's a trilogy. Awakening Book 2 will release January 2026, and Vanquishing releases 2027. In addition to that, just being in this group, there have been opportunities that came up. And so at one point, the publisher put up a call for people to write novella collections. And for the first time ever, 6 months later, I have finished my first novella called Quantum Christmas. And I'm very excited about this story. I do not normally write funny stories. It's not my go-to. And I really had a lot of fun with this story. It is, as my critique partner said, Amber said, it's hilarious. So I thought that was really fun because I needed to have that light during this journey with my father. And it was great to work on that and to have that light and just the joy of Christmas, to be able to celebrate what God has given to us. That is hopefully being submitted to the publisher on January 12th. So there's a lot of things there going on that kind of give me a sense that I've made it to another level. A final thing was that November, when I attended ScriptCon, I got this, me and Amy were driving back, and I got this crazy idea. Well, I don't know if Amy got it or if I got it or if we both got it. It was probably I started it, and she just encouraged my madness. But we had this idea that it would be fun. Hi, Sandra. That it would be, thank you, Amber. Yeah, it really is hilarious. That it would be great to teach a class on efficient writers balancing act. And so Amy and I submitted a proposal, and it got accepted for ScriptCon 2025, and we will be teaching the Efficient Writers Balancing Act, which is so fun. It's kind of a dream. I mean, as a teacher, I teach students all the time, all day long, every day, right? You know, and that's what it is. And I kind of put my ability to teach in a box and said, these are the people I teach. This is the stuff I teach. And I'm really blessed to see God kind of blow up my box and say, okay, let's go somewhere else. So lately I'm grateful God is moving on my behalf in my writing, and in just myself. Sarah says, I need that class. I know I think it's going to be a really great class. I'm really excited because she and I both are full-time workers. Like, she's got a whole thing with taxes that she does. We both have kids that are needing our attention. I mean, we're both going a lot. And so it's like, but we're also both putting out books regularly. And so I'm just excited to have this opportunity to hang out with her, and we'll plan. It'll be fun. I don't know, it'll be more fun actually presenting it or actually planning it. I think it'll be fun to plan it, but Sarah, you should come. It would be really fun to have you there. So I want to share another review, and this is, so Amy had the opportunity to proofread FreeFalling because I, at the time, was not up to it because of my dad's passing. And so I'm so grateful that she took a look at it, and she wrote a review of it to just share it. And I just love that she did this, and it means so much to me. Like, guys, you don't even know how much reviews matter. Like, they really mean something to authors. So she wrote, wow, brace yourself because this book takes you for a ride. Burrows does an excellent job building a world that seems great until you look deeper. There, in the details, you find a horrible government and a lack of real truth. Following Sarah and the ragtag group of friends she gathers along her journey makes you want to swing at some drones right along with them. This story leaves you breathless, angry at the bad guys, rooting for the good guys, and most importantly, full of hope. This is a great start to the series, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Thank you, Amy, for that. So I had another person ask me, what was the most interesting thing you learned while researching this book? And I'm going to tell you, I struggled with this question. I would say that the hardest thing about writing FreeFalling is that I was writing it from a non-Christian perspective. Sarah is not a Christian, and she's finding her faith at a time where faith is not allowed. So I will say that in researching like what verses she needs to feel and hear in her heart, I came up with a couple of really wonderful, thematically important to this story verses, but also to my life. So I'll share those with you now. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth, for he will not speak on his own authority, but whatever he hears, he will speak, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. It's John 16:13. Probably my favorite. Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. Exodus 14:13. And I'm not really an Exodus kind of girl. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. I did have someone write in a question about what does Mac look like? And I have not responded because it's a really tough question. I don't want to change what's in the reader's head as they're reading it. But I do want you to know you can find some inspiration photos, like the photos that I use to inspire and help me kind of see my characters. I always create a Pinterest board. And so if you go to Pinterest and you look up Jennifer Lynn Burrows, FreeFalling Book 1 in the Reconditioned Series, you'll see a board on Pinterest that shows you Mac and the evil commander and all the different characters. You get to see Serenity, you get to see Sasha, you get to see I don't know, all of them. So if you wanted to check that out, it's really fun. Again, Pinterest, you can follow me there. I'm Jennifer Lynn Burrows there. And FreeFalling Book 1 in the Reconditioned Series is the name of the board. Okay, are there any other questions out there? Anything else that you want to know about? Do I have any pantsers out there? Writers who write by the seat of their pants? Or how about planners? Why don't you put in a comment? If you are a pantser, leave a comment that you're a pantser. And if you're a planner, let me know that. Or plotter might be a better word for it. I'll tell you, I am a plantser, which is a combination of the two. And I have worked very hard to get to being a plantser, which means I plan a certain amount of the book and then I pants the rest of it. And so I have these like cards that I create and I keep them in front of me as I write, and they're like a digital version of a 3x5 card. And on it, I just put all the things that I have to have in that scene to make it successful. And then I kind of keep that there, and then I just write in the details, I write in the details. So I'm going to actually look up that answer, Sarah. Sarah asks, how do I get more info on ScriveCon? And I'm pretty sure the website, I'm checking the website now. Give me a second, because I'm pretty sure it's scrivecon.com. Yeah, if you go to scrivecon.com, and I wonder if I can write that. Nope, I can't write that in there. Look me up after, and I will give you the link. But it's ScriveCon, ScrivCon.com. It's November 13 through 16, 2025, and it is a really great time. I had a wonderful, wonderful time there. Okay, we're going to end with two more things. It looks like Andy says she's a combo too. That's cool. So we're the same. I like that. Amber says I pants short stories, but I have to plan longer works. Well, you know what? That's me too, because I don't plan the shorter ones. I just kind of gut rate them. So I feel that. So there is one of the questions is, what is the major takeaway you want your readers to get from your book? Okay, and it's short. In the darkest of darkness, God's light is always there with you. I just want people to understand there is always hope. Sometimes this life really feels hopeless. And that's kind of the point of free falling, is to talk about no matter how bad it gets, we always do have hope. Sarah, you wrote me earlier and you asked, tell us more about the monster or beast within Sarah. So there's ongoing throughout the book, Sarah has this like almost like a monster inside of her that she struggles to control. And for me, the monster, well, first of all, the monster isn't real. It's more like a metaphor of the wildness we all sometimes feel inside. This like chaos that we try to hold back. And, we always put ourselves in Instagram ready, poses. But in reality, we're not Instagram ready all of the time, right? And we have very strong, sometimes violent emotions, especially when we feel attacked or we feel hurt or we feel like a huge loss in our life. And so the monster inside of Sarah are those feelings that feel just beyond control. And especially when we choose to go against the grain of society, it can feel really like something wild is taken over, because you've stepped out into something no one does, and it's terrifying. And then you've done this crazy thing, and what are you going to do? So for me, it's kind of like a metaphor of Serenity's true self, that raw part of her that no one ever gets to see, but we can glimpse it in the first person narrative of a story. Thank you for sending that question in, Sarah. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and give you some parting thoughts and then share with you a couple of ways to stay in touch with me. Free Falling is an exploration of truth and God's love for us, even as we bumble about trying to make our way through this world. There are a lot of trials and tribulations that Serenity faces, and often she doesn't know what to do in the face of forging her path that is so different from the paths of the people around her. I pray her story of courage and seeking the truth encourages you to embrace your journey on the path less traveled, as we, the divinely called members of his kingdom, all grow into the places God calls us to stand firm. There are people in our lives who need for us to make a way, to be the change, and to stand out when everyone else is falling in line. Serenity's grandfather at one point had whispered to her those sweet truths at night. Now, that wasn't something she remembered clearly, but when the time hit that it mattered the most, those things that he taught her about God existing and that he loved her were the things that she remembered when it mattered the most. So then Serenity's able to seek a God she doesn't even hardly know exists. And then the other thing is that God will speak to our hearts. So if you hear that still small whisper, understand that that's God speaking to you and directing you, and listen to what's being said, especially if it sounds like something you might never think. Alongside that, I just pray that readers discover the power of our Almighty God, who loves us more than we'll ever understand and cares for the details we don't even know to be worried about. So if you'd like to continue to follow me in any of the social places, on Facebook, I'm at Jennifer Lynn Burrows. On YouTube, same thing, at Jennifer Lynn Burrows. And on Instagram, I'm at JL Burrows Author. I have no idea why I made those different. That was not a good choice. If you're a new author, don't make those different. Another piece of advice there. And the last review I'm going to share with you is from Kelly. I highly recommend this book to anyone who loves a fast-paced story that will keep your attention from page one. It just goes to show how things really do work out for good when one steps out in faith. Very well done. And if you go to jlburrows.com and sign up for my weekly newsletter, you'll receive a free prequel anthology to my previous series, The Balance Keepers. I told you about that earlier, and one day soon, I'll have a free story that aligns with the Reconditioned series. I'm still working on that one. Thank you guys for joining today. If you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Make sure you come out on Tuesday night at 6:30 Central Standard Time to join me for the book launch, where I'll be reading chapter 1, and I'll be sharing a couple other tidbits, not the same things, but different things. Y'all be blessed. Stay warm. Stay off the roads if they're not good where you're at, and take care. Bye, everyone.